Hi, this is Mike Fry, and you are listening to the We Effing Told You So podcast. Today is June 10, 2025, and today's installment is You Are Being Indoctrinated. News reporting on the LA protests and government overreach are fucking with all our heads. Anyone reading, watching, or listening to most of the news coverage around the Los Angeles ICE protests needs to beware. Most of the coverage is misleading you. Sometimes they're doing it intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, but misleading they are doing nonetheless. It's easy to see how this kind of thing starts. News organizations want people to read, watch, or listen to their coverage, so they select the most sensational visual images they can possibly find to attach to their stories. This results in the general perception that a relatively peaceful protest of only 120 people or so, that the LAPD, by all accounts, overreacted to, is perceived to be a violent clash. This makes it easy for people wanting to stir up trouble, like the alt-right white supremacists did during the George Floyd protests in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where we were living at the time and where we've previously reported most of the damage done was inflicted by white agitators from outside Minnesota, trying to use the protests to ignite a race war. Even though those white supremacists had posted publicly about their goal of using the protests to move forward with their sickening and evil agenda, the news organizations did what they always do. They omitted the difficult and complex subject matter of U.S. citizens striving for a redo of the last Civil War, and intentionally or not, attached the destruction that happened to peaceful Black Lives Matter protesters. So, here we are again. Only this time it's in LA, and the regime of the third Antichrist of Nostradamus is using the overly hyped story as an excuse to violate the U.S. Constitution yet again by deploying the National Guard and U.S. military inside the USA against the American people. Here's how the mayor of Los Angeles described what's happening.
So I talked to the administration. I was trying to tell them that they didn't need to have the National Guard come here because we had a protest. There was violence that took place. There was vandalism that took place, primarily in the form of graffiti. It was around 120 people. We are a city of 3.8 million. Our police department could take care of that. So what is the reason to bring the National Guard in? Supposedly it's to protect federal property and federal employees. The National Guard is deployed to one building in downtown Los Angeles, another building in Westwood where there have never been any protests in relation to ICE raids, but we did not need this to happen. This was a solution in search of a problem, and it has left the city in fear.
To be clear, what's happening in front of all our eyes is this. We have a Nazi-loving dictator who has taken over the White House after having instigated a failed violent insurrection, who's now using the most feeble excuse imaginable in order to deploy the U.S. National Guard and U.S. military to the streets of the USA against the American people. Meanwhile, most of the press is just showing a couple of photos of violence, thereby exaggerating the threat and helping to excuse his illegal move, just like they did in Minneapolis. Naturally, as anyone with a brain could have predicted in advance, this escalation of events by number 3's regime only made the situation on the streets worse, with counter-protests popping up all over the USA. And naturally, now number 3 is openly saying, we're going to have troops everywhere. So, welcome to the new police state in the USA. Brought to you by the same wealthy oligarchs who stood with Hitler 2.0 at his inauguration and who own most of the news outlets in the USA. So our recommendation is this. When you see news organizations doing this kind of shit, simply turn them off, turn the channel. They are unworthy of our time or attention. They are not informing you. They are manipulating you. We will all be better off if we just stop listening to those who seek to use sensationalism as a means of manipulation. We should all be smart enough to not let them get away with that kind of shit. We don't want to have to wait until it's too late when all we have left to do is sit back and say, "We effing told you so." You have been listening to the We Effing Told You So podcast. Please like and subscribe and share on your social media. You can also find us on Blue Sky, Substack, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and many other podcast apps.